I just want to get one more thing out there in regards to President Trump's plans for reopening the economy. He did announce that he would be meeting and kind of gauging the interests and ideas here from a few business leaders, as he calls them, across the board in terms of a great American economic revival, the plans here. And Barbara, just want to get your thoughts on kind of this political list he's established on the leaders that he'll be discussing plans with. Your take on that?
Well, picture the list. It's not a little list. It's 200 people, predominantly billionaires or at least millionaires. He's going to bring all these fat cats together and get their advice and their opinions on what he should do with the economy. It's going the wrong way. Imagine just even organizing something like that. It's basically the club that he always wanted to be a member of, the real billionaires club that he couldn't get in, and now he gets to run the show. Doesn't make any sense. What's needed now in a time of crisis, and is always needed in a time of crisis, is true leadership. Some guy making the shot, making the call as what has to be done. You don't turn around and ask 200 people and collect all these opinions, and it's really a vanity group. I just can't believe he would even waste the time doing it.
No, that's a good point when we talk about the way that the money is going to be distributed, because we keep talking about $2.2 trillion in terms of stimulus and where that's going, and the billions being applied to certain industries here, restaurants included, when we saw restaurant CEOs meeting with the president before this was all announced, and then the $350 billion that's likely to run out today when we think about the money going to small businesses as well. So there's a clear lobbying impact when we're thinking about how much this check is and the way that it's distributed. I mean, I guess that's politics. I guess that's the way things go, but I mean, it's not necessarily what you would want to see in terms of recovery and helping out Main Street through all of this.
You know what's the worst part about it is pits people against other people. It's like the big money grab. Who's going to get the money? What do I got to do? Oh, how do I fit in with everybody else? No, it's the wrong way to go. It should be very clear. It should be very even-handed, and it should be very obvious where the money is, really where the money is. Again, I'm going to believe that money I keep reading about the minute I see somebody get the money. I'm not seeing anybody get the money. And remember, Zach, I'm in a good position with a lot of entrepreneurs who have all applied for the money and nobody has it in hand. Pretty upsetting. I'm getting pretty annoyed about the whole thing. Wish I could do something about it, honestly. But I'm not giving them my money. No way.
No, it's surprising to hear. Like we said last time, I mean, with the platform of some of the businesses that you've invested in through the Shark Tank platform, you would have expected a different story there. But I guess, it's not the case. But when we talk about real estate, though, it's another one of those issues when we think back to the financial crisis and the way that clearly there was this impact of everyone was going to be hurt by this if you didn't address the problem. So banks, in the way they were caught in the middle of that crisis, were really the ones that the money kind of went towards to fix all this. Potentially, we're seeing a similar kind of crisis playing out here. When you look at the new updates we've been getting, you can look at the way that mortgage applications are getting more stringent, or the way that home builder sentiment continues to plummet. I'll start with the first point there, because JP Morgan Chase announced that it would be raising borrowing standards for most new home loans. That would take up a credit score of about 700 being the minimum on that front, requiring people to have about a 20% down payment for purchasing new homes out there. So when we're seeing that kind of take into effect, what's the impact on the overall real estate market when you have lenders getting a little bit more careful, considering that they might not know what's going to happen?
Well, the lenders are always the nervous Nellies in any marketplace. They're the first guys that fold. They're the most scared, the guys that get scared first. And in making the requirements more stringent, it's not good for the consumer. It's especially hurtful to the first-time home buyer. But you have to realize right now, not a lot is going on anyway. The markets are basically silenced. There's very few transactions happening, so you're not going to feel any effect of that. Once the market resumes, a lot of people are going to be knocked out of the lending environment, not be able to get the financing for the homes. So it's not welcome news, but it's a typical dance step that happens when there's trouble. The banks run for cover every time. You can count on it.
Yeah, and we're seeing the same thing out when we talk about that drop in transactions. The National Association of Realtors last month said that home sales could fall by about 10% in the short term compared to what we're used to seeing at this time last year. So I don't know if that necessarily would be all that impactful, as you're talking about maybe fewer sales going through, and what the impact might be for housing prices. If you think about people potentially saying is now a good time to buy a home, you still have interest rates at historic lows, but if more and more people aren't able to kind of compete to purchase your home, what that could mean here. So what's your take on those two things? And then also, if I could throw one more detail in here, we saw confidence among home builders plummet by the largest amount ever, stretching back 30 years when you look at the data to when they began tracking the data. So if you put all these things together and maybe less inventory out there on the market. What would be your advice to people potentially thinking about getting into real estate now?
You're talking about people buying a home. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, right now we're seeing home sales drop, off the
Okay.
short
Well,
term.
first of all, home sales have dropped, but along with the home sales dropping, and no surprise, you can't show a house. A broker can't show a house in most states, with a few exceptions. Buyers can't shop unless they want to commit to a house online, which ain't going to happen. Okay, and all the sellers are scared. More than 50% of the listings in most markets have been pulled off the market. Okay, you might say that's all bad news. The good news in that I see is that sellers have pulled their houses off the market, so it's shrunk the supply. That's going to help us recover when we turn the corner. Okay, absolutely. But for those brave people who are out and willing to shop, or still have just put their plans on hold, which are the great majority of people out there because they have no choice. The reality is when they come to the market, everybody's going to be in the market at the same time. They're going to pay more for the home than they're going to pay now. So the smartest home buyers out there should really be staying involved, knowing their local market, watching all the sales data, and actually shopping online, because then they're in the position to actually recognize a sweetheart deal when they see it. And if they pounce on it, they're going to get the deal of a lifetime. I can tell you that every real estate cycle that has gone up and down, the deals weren't made in the down cycles nor in the up cycles. They were always made in the times when there's greatest uncertainty, where everybody's guessing. And so if you're smart enough to attack the market in that way as an educated consumer and get out there and make a bid on a sweetheart deal, you're going to be the smartest guy that everybody's going to applaud you 6 months from now.
Yeah, and I guess it's also important to keep in mind that a house decision too, if you think about it, I face this too. It's not just one of those decisions where you can make it and expect to turn a house around in a year or two, unless you're a serious home flipper out there that you're going to be walking away a rich man. I mean, it's a serious investment decision if you're looking at it that way. But also, I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on commercial properties as well when we think about real estate and that side, just because the real estate number we got today was just abysmal. When you look at the 8.7% drop last month. Overall, a lot of issues right now in terms of malls, everything else, storefronts across the board. Curious to get your take on the way that could be problematic too. Just when we think about mortgage people with mortgages not being able to pay back loans on their homes, the same thing potentially in the commercial space.
I'm more worried about the commercial real estate market than certainly the home market, because with the home market, people get married, divorced, have babies, and there's always a need for change. That's not true of the commercial market whatsoever. What we have witnessed only in the last 2 months is a bellwether change in the commercial market that's going to make that commercial market lose a ton of value, I believe. And here's why. The people who have been working at home have realized that they're not so crazy about sitting in the traffic to go to work every day. It's going to change the desire to be in the office 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And businesses are going to realize they have way too much space to utilize, and they're going to want to renegotiate their leases, and the landlords are going to have to deal with them. And what's going to happen is it's going to bring down the value of all commercial real estate overnight. I really don't believe we're ever going to go home to what we had before. It's totally changed. And the only other portion of the real estate market that I think is going to be hit even worse is, of course, the shopping centers. They were half dead. We came into this whole debacle with them on one leg. The other leg's going to be cut out. So I can't even envision what's going to happen to the shopping centers. I just can't imagine.
All right, dire projections there. Of course, it's been the theme that we've been getting all day, pretty much, when we talk about this playing out. But Barbara Corcoran, always love having you on to break down.
Well, end it with a happy question. Come on, you got to get.
I would. We got much more coming on the show, Barbara. We're gonna continue with that, or better yet, you're gonna have to come back so we can talk about that
good enough.
later on. Shark Tanks, Barbara Corcoran, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon. Stay well.
Thank you, Zach.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.